Oh, help me, everyone. Help me. You're my only hope. Oh, oh man, when I said my book launch was going to be virtual, I didn't think it was going to be this virtual. Hold on. Let me see if I can sort this out. Whoa. This is not what I wanted. Hold on, I'll get it right this time. Here we go. Starting my launch now. Okay. I got it worked out. Okay. We're going to get started with my book launch right now.
Oh no, not again. Wah! Hey, Jack, get out of there, now!
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I am Marty Chan. I am an author, a storyteller, and a playwright. And thanks to the wonders of modern technology, I'm able to do this virtual book launch for all of you. And I already see some comments popping up on the screen. So I know that there are a few of you here with your classrooms, or sometimes you're here on your own. But I'm thrilled that you're able to carve a little bit of time out in your busy schedule to join me for this virtual book launch. Now, help me out. I just want to make sure that this is interactive. Do me a favor, post in chat what city you're watching from. And I know it takes a little time for comments to pop up, so I'll buy you time by telling you exactly where I am doing this broadcast from. I'm actually doing this broadcast from the planet Earth. Well, in particular, I am in Amiskwachee, which is the Cree name for Edmonton, Alberta. Now, I'd like to acknowledge the many Indigenous people who cared for this land on Treaty 6 territory. They include the Nahiawak, Anishinaabe, Niitsitapi, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. And as you can see on the screen, that is a picture of Amiskwachee, the city skyline. Actually, an older one because the Walterdale Bridge has now been replaced. And over here, this is the city's downtown core. And you'll see that silver building that is Rogers Place. And I see there is Jen from Edmonton, and JPH also from Edmonton, and Miss Kondo all the way from Toronto, Miss Elderkin from Medicine Hat, that's excellent, and Miss Burns from Edmonton. So, and Mr. Chang from Edmonton, and Miss Pfeffer all the way from Forestburg. I think I went to Forestburg many years ago, pre-pandemic. And there's Miss Badger coming in from Edmonton. Hello everyone. It's great to see you all. I know some of you are watching with your classes. So by the way, if you're broadcasting this in your classroom and it's up on the big smart board and you're like, you know what? I wish the resolution was a little better. Well, YouTube has it covered. All you have to do is click the little gear icon on the YouTube video. It'll bring up the quality settings. And if you set it to the highest, I think 1080 is the highest that I can go on mine. But if you pick anything higher than 360, it'll improve the resolution on your smartboard. So please do check that out if you're finding that the resolution isn't just the crispest and the clearest. And also, by the way, you can actually watch a recording of this. I'm doing this live, but I'm going to save the recording and leave it on my channel for about a month. So if there were any of your colleagues or friends who didn't get a chance to see it live and in person, don't worry, it'll stay on my YouTube channel for about a month. And I believe the only thing that you can't do is you can't ask me questions on that one because I'll be sleeping when that thing is going on. All right. Now, I would like to acknowledge and thank the people or the organizations that made this possible. First of all, I would like to thank Orca Book, my publisher, for helping me put together my book, which I'm going to be talking about in just a little bit. But I'd also like to recognize the Writers Union of Canada, which sponsored this virtual event. If you don't know the Writers Union of Canada, is a fantastic organization that helps Canadian authors connect with Canadian readers. And sometimes they sponsor events just like this. And oh, by the way, if you are a teacher in Ontario, they have a program called Writer in the Schools, where writers can go either in person to your school or virtually broadcast to your school. And the Writers Union of Canada will cover the costs of that. So if you're interested, do check out the Writers Union of Canada for some of their helpful programs. Now, we're here today to talk about one of my books in the hope that it will encourage some of you to pick up a book and give it a read, in particular, my book. But along the way, I'm also going to be sharing with you some writing tips and some insight into my creative process so you get a little idea of how I work as a writer. And I know the first question that people often ask when they find out that I'm a writer, first question they often ask me is, Marty Chan, how do you come up with your ideas? Okay, let me break things down for you. Ideas, they are not magical. I know back in the old days, Greeks believed that there were muses, magical creatures like fairies, that would come down from the universe and whisper ideas in the ears of writers, artists, and inventors to help them come up with their creations. Now, today we know there's no such thing as a muse. There are no fairies or magical creatures. No, the way we come up with ideas is that we're just simply curious. We ask questions like who left that Rubik's Cube there? And then what we try to do is we try to figure out the answers to the questions, right? And then what we do is we go, maybe somebody left this here for me to solve. My next question would be, well, how do you solve this? And maybe I would try it on my own and then I'd make a real mess out of it. Then I would have to find other ways to answer my question. Maybe I'd go on the internet, or I'd ask somebody who knows how to solve Rubik's Cubes and ask them how to do it. And when I start to get the answers to my questions, guess what starts to happen? Your ideas start to form. And the next thing you know, those ideas turn into stories that are complete, just like this cube. So if you're wondering how do you come up with ideas, the answer is simple. Ask questions. Be curious, because you never know just what question might open up your universe. Hey, fairy, get out of my universe. No, it's my universe. Hey, stay away from my sandwich. I'm saving that for after. No! You ate my sandwich! All right. Other than that fairy, that writing tip comes in pretty handy. The whole notion of coming up with ideas is just about asking and answering questions. So if you want to come up with your own stories, think about the questions that you're curious about, the things that make you wonder in the world, and then look for the answers, either in your imagination or through research or through interviews with people who might know what's going on, and that will give you a starting point for your ideas. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of my creative process and how questions sort of help me out, and also sort of my own sort of view of the world and how that shaped my sort of sense of creativity. And I think oftentimes there were two things that help me shape my ideas when I'm asking questions and coming up with ideas. One is positive and one is negative. And sometimes I put those two things together to shape a lot of the spine of my stories, right? The theme or the topic of the stories are often derived from the one thing that I find that I have a passion for, something that I'm positive about. And the other thing that, it's sort of, there were some experiences in my life that were not so great. And those two things came together to form a lot of the stories I've written. In fact, let's see if you can guess what those two things are. We're going to start off with a little hint about the thing that I love. So take a look at this and see if you can answer what you think I loved in my life that helped shape my stories. All right. Any answers coming through? Let's see what people... I know they're going to put popcorn. They're going to put popcorn. Let's see. Who's got a guess? about the thing that I'm passionate about, the thing that I loved when I was a kid, and I still love now as an adult. Who's got it? Who's got the... Is anything popping in? Let's see. They're all yelling at each other right now. No, no, it's popcorn. It's got to be popcorn. All right, let's see. Let's see. Anyone? Anyone? Oh, the latency on this is a little slow, so I know that their answers are popping through. Fiction. Well, that's not bad. Yeah, fiction is part of it. Movies. There we go. GPH has got movies. All right, I'm going to give you a thumbs up for that one. Awesome. Excellent. All right. So when I was a kid, I loved watching movies, and they sort of informed a lot of the things that I do today, right? Because I think visually. I very much, when I write, I think about pictures that I want to see on screen, and that's why a lot of the writing that I do has a lot of sort of visual imagery in them that sort of pulls the reader along, because I find that if I like seeing something, then I'm more prone to read something. And there were a few movies in my life that kind of shaped the way that I approach a lot of the stories that I write. Let's see if you're able to guess this one. I'm gonna put a little clue up here. I've got 3 favorite movies that I have. We're going to start with the first one. Get ready, teachers, get ready. Type in comments what the kids' guesses are for one of my favorite movies, with the hint right over here. All right, so take a look at the background, and you might be able to get some clues that start popping through that might give you a little idea of one of the early movies that I liked when I was a kid. So who there has noticed what's zipping around that might be? Let's see who's got it. Oh, there he is. Star Wars. Wait a minute. All right. Okay, there we go. Now we have some Superman. Okay, Superman. Right over there is the one movie that I remember watching when I was a kid, way back in, I believe, 1976. Yes, I'm very old. And the thing that I loved was this idea of an alien from another planet coming to the planet Earth and becoming a superhero. Now, I'm basically an alien, or I felt like an alien, because my parents came to Canada from China, and my treatment, the way kids treated me, was not the way people treated Superman. And one of the things that I wanted to be Superman, somebody who came from another place but was celebrated as a hero who could fight for justice. So that was one of the movies that I loved. It kind of shaped the way that I saw things. The other movie that I saw, let's see, where's the other one? Okay. So the other movie is right over here, and I think some of you might have already guessed this, but let's give everyone a chance based on what you see flying behind me. Who's got an idea of the other movie that I liked watching? Or, well, so now it's a franchise, so it's probably... How many movies are in the franchise now? I think there's at least 12. If we get into the series, it's probably like close to 50 in the series, in the franchise. But what are you seeing on the screen? And there we go. Miss Pfeffer's class comes in strong, and so does Miss Badger's class. Excellent. I'll give you a Cat Shack shimmy for that one. Awesome. So Star Wars was, well, the first movie, A New Hope, was the one that sort of, it made me realize that you could be from anywhere and you can make things possible, right? Because Luke Skywalker was just this farm kid on a desert planet, and he wound up being the guy that saved the universe, right? And that made me start to think about the kinds of stories that I wanted to write. I want to write about underdogs, people who might come from just normal or less than normal conditions. They're not superheroes. They're not going to be masters of the universe, but for some reason, whatever happens in their life, help them to sort of do things heroic. And I like that idea, and it sort of informed a lot of the stories that I wrote. Now, as I got older, there was another movie that sort of came into play. And this one, if there are grade 7s and 8s there, I think you might know this particular franchise. But let me show you the. Okay, so this is my clue to all of you about. I think I was probably in high school when I came across this movie, right over here, represented by that mask. Type in chat if the kids know exactly what movie this mask over here comes from. Who knows what this mask, what movie franchise this belongs to? And to give you a little hint, it has to do with a special time in the fall where people go trick-or-treating. Was that too much of a clue? It might be too much of a clue. But let's see who can come up with this movie franchise. Well, Miss Badger and Mr. Chang, wow, both of you are fast on the draw. Okay, excellent. Round of applause for that. Yes. Now, Halloween was probably, like, there were a lot of scary movies before then, but they usually, like in the 50s and 60s, they were about monsters like Godzilla or aliens that were coming to the planet Earth. This movie was the first sort of breakout hit where the monster was actually supposedly a human named Michael Myers, and he wore this mask and he sort of went through a neighborhood and did away with teenagers. And here's a little tidbit for those of you who are probably not familiar with the franchise. It sort of dawned, it gave birth to the whole notion of killers walking around wearing masks. There were other characters like Jason from Friday the 13th, and there was Freddy Krueger, who didn't have a mask, but his face was supposedly horribly burned. But what I find interesting about the Michael Myers mask is the fact that it has a connection to something not a lot of people would actually think about the connection, but there's a connection between the Michael Myers mask and this right over here. Now, if you're familiar with that spacecraft, you will know that that is the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. And there is a connection between Michael Myers and Star Trek, in particular, the mask. You see, the mask was originally a mask that was made for William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk, the captain of the Starship Enterprise. Now, that mask, after it was used, it was left in the props department. And when the people were making the movie Halloween, they're trying to figure out a mask that they could use for Michael Myers. And they just happened to be in the prop department, and they saw the mask that was originally made for William Shatner. And they said, you know what? We put some hair on it and we do a couple of little tweaks to it, that could be the mask for Michael Myers. So when you take a look at this mask, just know that this is the twisted face of William Shatner, the original captain of the Enterprise. So that's a little tidbit that I thought I would share with you. Now, that whole notion of scary movies really stuck in my mind. And I love the idea of writing stories designed to scare people. And I remember even like early on in my life, like when I was a teenager, I liked to scare people. And I remember I played a game called Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if you don't know Dungeons and Dragons, it's basically a role-playing game where people would get together and they'd roll dice and they would pretend to be wizards and warriors on quests looking for buried treasure, where they would have to combat orcs or fight off dragons or try to find little secrets in valleys and try to talk to fairies that could help them find things. Now, I was the dungeon master for the game Dungeons and Dragons. And the Dungeon Master is basically like the referee. And I had a bunch of manuals like right over here. These were my manuals where I could come up with monsters and adventures that the players could go on. And I took my I took my job really seriously. So what I did was I actually set the mood for everybody. Um, I had a table and I had a black tablecloth over it. I had like a human skull that I bought from, I think I bought it from a magic store. And I had candles burning. I had all the lights turned out. And I would actually put like a creepy soundtrack while the players were playing. And it became the stuff of legend, my Dungeons and Dragons games, because people love the idea of playing the games and also being scared because I had really set the mood for them. And the players would go on all these different quests and they would sort of figure out like what kind of creepy things I would have in store for them. Now, it turns out that the legend of my games had spread so much that there was one fellow in class, his name was Jack, who thought, you know what, Dungeons and Dragons, that's just for little kids. It's not going to be very scary. I don't know what you're all talking about. And so I decided to teach Jack a lesson. So we had an adventure night where we invited Jack to come play. And I made the adventure just for Jack. And the idea was, and it sort of came from that whole notion of, if you're familiar with zombie movies, I wanted to have a zombie movie-like experience for Jack. And the players were going to go into a village called Sendam, and they were going to be looking for treasure. But through the course of the quest, one player after another would be turned into basically a zombie-like character that could only chant the word Sendam, which basically was madness backwards. So I knew that all the players were going to be turned into these zombies creatures, except for one. The one player who would survive was Jack. And I remember we played for about 3-4 hours and we got to the end of the night. And the other players were good sports because as soon as they got turned into zombies, they started chanting Sendam, Sendam, Sendam. And it sort of really built up the creepy mood. At the end of the evening, Jack's character barely escaped from the village of Sendam. And after that, Jack never came back to play another game. I found out a few years later from one of his friends that Jack, after he played that game, had nightmares for about 6 weeks. And that's why he never wanted to play the game ever again, because it freaked him out too much. Now, I know this makes me sound sick and twisted, but I love the feeling that I made somebody have nightmares for that long. And it sort of gave me the juice to basically want to do more. And so through the course of my career, I've written a lot of scary things. Some of them I might have talked about at your schools. But for those of you who haven't seen me, this is one of the books that it inspired right over here. Haunted Hospital, which is actually one of my more successful books. My recent book, it went into second printing, so it's a bestseller. There's an audiobook version of it. And it's sold over 5,000 copies and it's being translated into French. So it's a scary book about 4 teenagers who, believe it or not, they're playing a fantasy role-playing game. But instead of being wizards and warriors, they're ghost hunters who go into abandoned buildings to look for ghosts. And they decide to go into an abandoned hospital. Now, that hospital was actually inspired by a real-life hospital in Edmonton. Now, some of you in Edmonton may know which building I'm talking about, but for those of you outside of Edmonton, take a look right over here. This is the old Charles Campsall Hospital. It's now being turned into condominiums, so people are actually going to be living there. But this was operating as a hospital probably all the way back from the 1920s. But in the 1950s, it was used as a TB sanatorium. Now, if you're not familiar with TB, it's called tuberculosis, and it's a contagious disease that spreads and it's kind of fatal. And they didn't know how to treat it properly. So if anybody came down with tuberculosis or TB, they were sent to this sanatorium to be treated. And not a lot of people survived the treatment or the disease, and they died. And apparently the stories are that their ghosts walk the hallways. And so I use this building as the setting for my novel, Haunted Hospital. And the 4 teenagers who go into the hospital looking for ghosts in the game wind up finding something that's far creepier than whatever they could imagine in the game. Now, in preparation to promote the book, I thought it'd be really cool to make a book trailer to sort of give people a sense of what the story was like. So what I'm going to do right now is show you a book trailer that I made for my book, Haunted Hospital. So everybody, eyes on the screen, take a look at the trailer that I made for Haunted Hospital. I heard there are ghosts in there.
Let's check it out. It'll be fun.
I heard there are ghosts in there.
Let's check it out. It'll be fun.
All right, so there is a book trailer that I made for Haunted Hospital, and it is something that was shaped by my love of scaring people, the movie Halloween, which inspired me to become dark and twisted with some of the stories I wrote. So my love of movies inspired a lot of my creativity. Now, I told you there were two things that inspired me to sort of come up with the ideas I did. The second thing is something not so positive, is a little bit sort of more negative, and it was the fact that I grew up in a small town in Alberta. The town's called Morinville, and when my parents showed up there, we were the very first and actually only Chinese people in the entire town. So when I went to school, I didn't look like the other kids, and in the beginning, because I looked different, nobody wanted to talk to me. Kids would tease me, and I was sad and lonely. I kind of wish the kids would stop picking on me. And in fact, I remember there was one particularly mean girl who was the daughter of the gym teacher. So you couldn't ever say anything to her because she'd just tell her dad, and then the gym teacher dad would punish us by making us run extra laps. And I remember this girl would come up to me almost every day. She'd pull her eyes down and she'd say, "Hey, look at me. I've got Chinese eyes just like you." And it made me feel horrible about the way I looked. I felt very self-conscious, and I kind of wished that I could fit in with the other kids. And I thought, if I look like the other kids, maybe that'll get them to stop picking on me. Now, I knew that I couldn't change the color of my skin. I was pretty sure that my mom wouldn't let me dye my hair, but I thought I could do something about my eyes. And I thought if I could pull my eyes up, then I would look like the other kids and that mean girl would stop picking on me. So one night I went home, I went into my bedroom, I pulled out some tape and I tried to tape my eyes up. Now, unfortunately, back then, the tape that we used wasn't very strong, so I needed more and more strips of tape to pull my eyes up. And eventually, I had my entire face wrapped up like a mummy. Now, I remember I'm sitting in the bedroom waiting for the tape to pull my eyes up, and my mom walks in and catches me. Now, I love my mom to death, but she is one of these brutally honest moms who will tell you exactly what she's thinking. She doesn't care how to make you feel. She'll just tell you what's on her mind. So my brutally honest mom walks into the bedroom and she goes, "Ay, Marty, what are you doing? You're wasting all the tape." And I had to come clean. I said, "Mom, I'm getting picked on at school and I'm just trying to tape my eyes up so I look like everyone else." And my brutally honest mom takes one look at my face and she shakes her head and goes, "Oh, Marty, you don't have to worry about your eyes. You should be more worried about your nose." Turns out my mom thought my nose was too wide, and thanks to her, not only did I have tape wrapped around my face to pull my eyes up, but I also had a clothespin pinched over my nose to make it thinner. Now, eventually, I used my sense of humor to win over the kids at school so they stopped picking on me. And if you've read any of my books, or you probably get a sense from this presentation, I use humor a lot. And that sort of was something that I used as a self-defense mechanism to basically help me cope with something negative in my life. And in turn, it sort of fed into a lot of the books that I've written, including the book that I'm going to talk about right now. And we're going to talk about my book, Final Cut, as soon as I find out where I put the book. Hold on a second. I just got to find my book. Where did I put it? Okay, I know the book is here someplace. Well, if I can't find the physical book, let me do the next best thing. This is a hologram collection of all the books I've written. It's a little digital library of mine, and let me see if I can adjust the... there we go. Okay. All right, and let's bring up the book. All right. Whoops. Okay, let's try it again. Hold on here. Okay, hold on. There we go. There is my book, Final Cut, but it seems a little small. So you know what? Let's bring it to life. And there we have it. Final Cut, my new book. Now, let me tell you what the book is about. See this guy right over here? It's not me. It's actually a guy named Mason who is a huge fan of horror movies. And yeah, he likes the same movies I did, right? The Michael Myers, Halloween, Jason the 13th kind of thing. But he also likes to make his own movies. And this is where I go into fiction, where I make up this idea of a kid who loves horror movies so much that he decides to make his own horror movies. In fact, he has a YouTube channel where he posts his short horror movie films when he's got viewers, at least a dozen of them. So it's not a very popular channel, but he loves making them, especially with his friend Maya. Now, Mason gets in a little bit of trouble with a couple of bullies named Cole and Denise, who are constantly tormenting him about his filmmaking and about his size. And they basically make his life miserable at school. Now, here's the thing. Mason is being transferred to a new school. His dad got a job in another city, so he's leaving. To is a life and death chase as Mason has to get home before Cole, Denise, and their pack of bullies get their hands on him. So that is basically the... Let's try that again. So, all right. The wonders of modern technology. I hit my mute button by accident. Welcome to live stream. Okay, so basically, what happened was, for those of you who probably couldn't hear what I was saying, Mason makes a movie that basically makes the two bullies. Did it mute again? Are we good? Going once, going twice. I'm just checking to see. I've got sound on. Oh, what's going on here? Bear with me for a second. I'm just gonna... Oh, right, because we're out of time. We're out of sync. Okay. It's on again. Okay. All right. Now that I recognize that we're all watching this at different times, it's like, oh boy. Okay.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
All right. So now I'm going to check my volume to make sure it's on. So from this point on, I think we're going to be good. Just to back you up for the part where I was talking without sound, basically the two bullies that have been tormenting Mason, they make fun of him through the school year, and Mason is actually transferring to a new school. And as he's leaving, he decides to leave a parting gift for the bullies. They taunted him while he was trying to make a movie, and he caught them on camera. And he re-edited the footage of the bullies to make them look like buffoons. And he posts the video on his YouTube channel, and it actually goes viral. And all the kids at school know about the video, and they laugh at the two bullies. The two bullies and their friends catch wind of the video, and they're not too happy about it, so they decide to get their hands on Mason and teach him a lesson. And what happens is a life and death chase as Mason's trying to get home before the bullies get their hands on him. So that's basically the story behind my latest book, Final Cut. Now, I thought what I would do is I would do a little reading from the book to give you a little sense of what its tone is like. And then I'll open up the floor for any questions you might have about the book or about writing in general. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reading. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm not holding a book up while I'm reading, it's because my eyesight is terrible. So what I have is the manuscript posted on my screen just behind my camera, and I'm going to be reading it off the screen. So if you're wondering, how does Marty Chan memorize his book? I'm actually reading it off the screen, all right? So here we go. Here is a reading of my latest book, Final Cut. Chapter 3. I felt like a victim in a horror movie. Denise and Cole were the killers chasing me down. I had to get home before they caught me. Oh, forget waiting for the school bus to roll out. I had to make a run for it. I slipped my backpack over both shoulders, and I ran for home. The first few blocks, I kept staring over my shoulder to make sure Cole and his pals weren't on my trail. If this were a horror movie, I'd be tripping on a blade of grass right about now. I didn't, but my legs felt like jelly and my t-shirt was soaked with sweat. Now, my best bet was to duck down a side street and make my way to somewhere I could catch a city bus. The only problem was, I didn't know how many people Denise and Cole had rounded up to help look for me. They could be around any corner. I hoped my head start was enough to buy me the time I needed. I reached a busy street with shops and restaurants, and I scanned the area for a bus stop. Ah, yes. I spotted a bus parked across the street and down a block or so. Its door was open. But before I could cross, Denise's friend Nadia rolled out on her mountain bike. She skidded to a stop between me and the bus. Now, Nadia towered over almost every student and some of the teachers, and she had a mean streak. "Hey, Mason," she said with a sneer. Oh, no way was I going to wait for her to rat me out. I turned and sprinted in the other direction. "Get back here," I heard her shout. The backpack slapped against my sweaty back as I sped away. I hoped my camera would be okay, but that was the least of my worries. I could hear the whir of Nadia's bike wheels on the sidewalk as she closed in. Oh, I nearly slammed into an old couple coming out of a store. The man shook his fist at me. "Sorry," I yelled as I looked back. Nadia nearly knocked over the woman, barely zipping around her at the last second. "Ring your bell," the woman yelled. "Damn kids!" Nadia ignored her and poured on the speed toward me. "Leave me alone," I screamed as I ran down the sidewalk. "I didn't do anything to you." "You're gonna pay for what you did. Denise is my friend." I kept running, but I knew it wouldn't be long before she caught me. All she had to do was call her friends, and I'd be done for. Ugh, why had I uploaded the video last night? I could have waited until I was free and clear of the school and the jerks before posting it. Could have, should have, would have. I could hear my mom's voice in my head and picture her wagging finger. "You're dead meat," Nadia shouted. Oh, she was so close now I could smell the rubber from her front tire. I swore she was going to pop a wheelie and roll right over my back. I changed course and ran across the street. A truck screeched to a stop in front of me. "I almost killed you," the man behind the steering wheel yelled before punching his horn again. I dodged more traffic and somehow managed to get to the other side. Nadia on her bike, well, she'd have to wait for the traffic to clear before she could cross. At least that's what I had hoped. I headed along the row of shops, gasping for air. My lungs burned. My backpack, loaded with my camera and special effects gear, was slowing me down. Even after 2 seasons of rugby, I couldn't keep up this running pace. Oh, Why had I brought all my stuff with me today? Oh, could have, should have, would have. I heard the whiz of a bike's wheels. Mason! Nadia shouted. She had caught up to me again. Oh, home was too far away and I couldn't outrun her bike. Then I spotted a clothing store with an open door. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. Then I ducked behind a rack of women's tops so I could catch my breath. Through the window, I watched Nadia skid to a stop and hop off her bike. She looked down the street, then pulled out her phone. Oh, Cole and Denise wouldn't be far behind. A young clerk was folding clothes in the middle of the store. She caught me looking her way and flashed a smile. Welcome to Juniper's. May I help you? Is there another way out of this place? I asked. Her smile never faded. No, but everything is 20% off today. I glanced out the window at Nadia texting. Time was running out. My name is Melanie. If you need anything, the clerk said, anything at all, I'm here for you. Thanks, I said. I'll just look around. Be sure to ask for me, she said. Ooh, Melanie was pushy. I guess she needed a sale. Remember, everything in the store is 20% off. I pretended to search through the rack of clothes in front of me. The door opened and Nadia entered. She blocked the entrance. I was trapped. And there is a reading of my novel Final Cut, which hopefully will have inspired some of you to want to grab it from the library or the bookstore and give it a read. Now, if you want to get it from the bookstore, they're available across Canada at fine bookstores, including your independent bookstore. I always say that should be your first stop. And if you can't find it in your independent bookstore, please ask the owner or the staff to bring it in. And of course, you can always go to Chapters to get that, along with some scented candles. Okay, all right. So this brings me to the end of my formal part of the book launch. I do have a couple minutes to answer questions, but I also know that it might be getting close to lunchtime for some of you in class. If you have to log off, it was great to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And if you can stay on for a couple of minutes to ask questions, go ahead. Let your teacher know what question to type into the comments, and I'll do my best to answer whatever questions pop up in the next few minutes. All right, so question away. Okay, so we're just looking for any questions before I sign off. And I know that we're all out of sync. Some of you are watching probably me dealing with audio problems earlier, and some of you may be just like 30 seconds away on your end. So it's a really interesting thing. Sorry, I'm just talking to buy you time. But it's a really interesting thing to do this thing on YouTube where it's like all out of time. And then, of course, there may be people who watch the video later and start wondering, what exactly is Marty Chan talking about? Oh, here we go. Miss Kondo's class. How long have I been writing books for? Ooh, that's a great question. How long have I been a writer? So that basically means I have been writing for, this long. I am a dinosaur. I have been writing books for over 17 years. I have been writing plays, TV shows, and radio for over 35 years. Yeah, I am super old, but I have been writing for a very long time. Okay, so thank you, Nicolette. I'm going to give you a DJ Cat for that question. Excellent. All right, and Oh, thank you, Mr. LaVenture. I really am glad that you liked my books. Let me see if I can put that up on the broadcast. There we go. Oh, I'm glad that you like the scary ones. Excellent. Okay. Oh, and Miss Pfeffer has a question from her class. At what age did I start writing? I think that I started probably back in grade 11. And that's when my high school language arts teacher, Mr. Nigro, gave our class a homework assignment. Basically said, what would happen if you won the lottery? What would you do to redecorate your bedroom? Now, I was a lazy kid, so my idea of a dream bedroom was to have a bed I never had to get out of to do all the things I wanted to do. So I actually put my bed on an elevator, right? The top level is where I slept. There was a skylight overhead so I could sleep under the stars. And on the nightstand, there was an elevator button. When I pushed it, the entire bed actually lowered to a library with all the books I ever wanted to read. And then underneath the library, there was a private movie theater with a big screen, and it played all the first release movies, so I never had to leave my bed to see all the movies I wanted to. Now, underneath the movie theater, there was a bathroom and a kitchen. And the kitchen had this automatic fast food dispenser. And I'm talking about, potato chips and chocolate bars, but it also had KFC if I wanted it, or Big Mac and fries. I could get that, or even hot pizza. Just by a push a button, I get everything I wanted. Underneath the kitchen was a video game arcade with every game system and every game system in the world. And underneath the arcade, it had my favorite level of all. It had an indoor swimming pool. The foot of my bed was actually the top of a water slide. If I wanted to go for a swim, I just jumped on the slide and I zipped all the way down into my own private swimming pool. Now, here's the thing. I remember I handed in this assignment. My teacher gave it back to me. He said, "Marty, you got a great imagination. You should become a writer." And so that was way back when I was in grade 11. All right. It's a great question there. Thank you very much. I'll give you a Boba Fett for that question. Excellent. All right. Oh, and JPH, there's a question. Do you share your first drafts with one trusted reader before you send it in? Yeah. Actually, they call them beta readers. My beta reader is my wife. She will read every first, second, third, and fourth draft until I'm ready to send it off to the publisher. Now, the key here is you got to make sure that it's somebody you trust to give you good notes and somebody who's not going to hurt your feelings too much. And my wife's learned to be honest without being mean, and she's my first reader. All right. Great question. I'll give you the rock for that one. Oh, and I got a question coming up from two people. My favorite book. What is my favorite book of all the ones I've written? I can tell you right now, my personal favorite book is this book right over here. Believe it or not, it's actually my picture book about my two favorite things in the world. It's about my two cats. Sadly, they're no longer with us. Their names are Buddy and Max, but they became the main characters of my picture book, True Story, and they are... that book is my personal favorite. I have books that I've written that I'm more proud of in terms of how I wrote the story, but that is my personal favorite because I just have a special connection to my two cats. All right, great question. What shall I give you for that one? I'm going to give you a big thumbs up for that one. And then we've got, are my books based on real life events when you're a kid or a writer? Yes, a lot of the early books I wrote, like right over here, The Mystery of the Frozen Brains or The Mystery of the Mad Science Teacher, those books were inspired by my childhood experiences. Later books are made up, like, for example, right over here, Demon Gate. It's all about a young Harry Houdini taking on creatures coming from other dimensions, and he partners up with Nikola Tesla. Obviously, I'm old, but not that old, and so I had to do some research to come up with that book because it's inspired by my research. All right, so good question there. I'm going to give you a Fortnite thank you for that one. Let's see. What's my favorite genre of books to read? Maybe other than scary, from Marco. Oh, I like to laugh a lot. So any funny books that are out there, I will read. In fact, right over here, let me see if I can find it very quickly. Oh, right over here, Susan Nielsen, very funny writer. And she also writes some serious books, but she combines it with a very good sense of character comedy. And I love reading her books. So great question there. What shall I give you for that one? I'm going to give you a Deadpool clap for that one. And let's see. Oh, Ms. Pfeffer, how do you anticipate the questions we would ask? I have been doing this for quite a few years, and there's a few general questions that I always get asked. So I just prep the scenes in advance to go, okay, I think somebody's going to ask this question at some point. At one point, the question that they always asked me was, am I related to Jackie Chan? And I would always say yes. But I'm not. We're not related at all. But times have changed and nobody knows who Jackie Chan this anymore. So I don't get that question asked anymore. Okay, and who is my favorite writer other than myself? Ooh, that's a good question, Weston. My favorite writer other than myself would be this writer right over here, Arthur Slade, who writes fantasy and steampunk. He's from Saskatoon. Ooh, Arthur would kill me if I said the wrong city. But he's from Saskatchewan, and he's a fantastic fantasy writer. I definitely love his books. If you ever get a chance to pick up his books, give them a read. They are pretty awesome. All right, thank you for that question. And to wrap up, we got one more question coming in for Mr. LaVenture's class. What was the first book I ever wrote? The first book I ever wrote is right over here. My favorite book, or no, that's not my favorite book. Right over here. My first book is this one right over here, The Mystery of the Frozen Brains. And you remember earlier when I talked about like Superman and thinking that I was an alien from outer space? Well, that is basically what happened with the Frozen Brains. Not Superman, but I thought that my parents were aliens from outer space and that they had parked the UFO someplace and I had to go find it. Okay. And one last question just came in. Two more questions. What's my favorite video game? My favorite video game right now, I am playing Empires and Allies, which is like a strategy game where you're basically building bases and attacking other people's bases. So it's more of a strategy game because it's slower. My fingers don't move as fast anymore. All right, so give you a thumbs up for that one. And final question from Miss Elderkin's class. Have I ever been to the real hospital in Edmonton that inspired this book over here, Haunted Hospital? I walked around the building, but I couldn't get into the building, and I never got a chance to actually go into the building itself. So that's one thing that I'm kind of disappointed in, that I never got a chance to actually go into the real Campbell Hospital. All right. And one more question. What was the hardest book to write, time-wise or struggle-wise, from Nico? Nico, the hardest book that I had to write probably was this one right over here, Demon Gate. And the reason why is that it had nothing to do with my life. It had everything to do with my passion for stage magic. I was a big fan of Harry Houdini, but I didn't know anything about Nikola Tesla, who's the other main character in the story. So I had to do a lot of research beforehand. I had to set this in 1890s New York. So I had to try to make it seem believable. So I had to go to New York and do a bunch of research. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work to pull things together. All right. So thanks for that question. What shall I give you for that question? I'm going to give you, what haven't I given people yet? Let's see what I've got here. Let me give you, an Aquaman thumbs up for that one. Okay. All right. Now, I like to always finish off with something fun, a little writing tip. And it's about the importance of being able to come up with details so that people know what you're doing. And if you use the 5 senses, right? What we see, what we hear, what we smell, taste, that can help stories come to life. In fact, better for me to show you rather than tell you. Somewhere here, I have the coolest pen in the world. Where is it now? Where is it? Okay. It's right over here. All right. Believe it or not, this is the coolest pen in the world. This pen can turn into a lightsaber.
You sit on a throne of lies.
But it's true. It is true. I guess I'm going to have to prove it to you, right? And I'm going to use the sensory details. In fact, I only need 3 of the 5 to show you what I mean. I mean, first of all, I can feel the pen getting warm between my fingers. And if you listen carefully, you might hear the hum of the energy collecting in the pen. And then when you look down, you see a bolt of energy shooting out of the lightsaber pen. I know what you're thinking. Is it real? Well, there's only one way to find out. Should I touch it? Okay. All right, hold on. I'm going to touch the lightsaber. Are you sure about this? Okay. All right. Touching the lightsaber. Hey, you want to hear about one of my other new... No? Okay, all right. Hold on. I'll touch it. Okay, bad idea. Seriously, bad idea. Do not touch the lightsaber. But I have something else in mind. Watch this. Pretty cool, right? Oh, okay, I know what you want. You want me to cut something with this lightsaber. Alright, let me see what I can find. No, not the Batman. Not my lights. Oh, I got an idea. Watch this. Now that's called using the Force. And there we have it. With just a few sensory details, I can take this ordinary pen and turn it into a lightsaber. So the next time you describe an event, a person, or a setting, use those senses, right? What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and maybe be careful with what we touch. All right? Use your details wisely. So remember that tip. Use your senses, come up with details, and make everything come to life, and you can come up with great stories. Meantime, this is the end of this session for me. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Please do check out Final Cut from your library or a local bookstore and give it a read. It's a brand new book. I'm really proud of it, and I hope you get a chance to check it out. Meanwhile, stay safe, and we'll see you around. All right, take care, everybody. Goodbye. Goodbye. Take care. We'll see you around. Goodbye. Take care. See ya. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.